Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I was hoping to film my stuff for the Global Virtual Orchid Show, which is tomorrow. I was hoping to get the filming done today, but it's just a dull day. The light is really poor. So to take advantage of not having good enough light to film anything, I'm going to do a major update, but it's going to be fast. This is just literally, as I pass each plant, I'll say in a short sentence what it's doing or what it ought to be doing, and it isn't in some cases. I'm halfway through doing my mounts at the moment, which is why all the racks look bare up the top there. They're all hanging all over the place at the moment, which is going to be in the way for some things, but I won't be able to film every single plant because I'm not picking each one up. I'm just flying past it, literally. Right, so coming along here, these are off the rack behind me. Tiny twinkle, massive new growths, probably over a dozen. This big, it is a twinkle cross, but again, new growths everywhere. Loads. They're coming out from all over the plant, which they should be. I mean, so those two Oncidium types are doing exactly what they should do, following a good blooming. They should have a little bit of a break where nothing much happens for a bit and then go mad, and that's what they're doing. That's one of the new dendrobiums. That's doing nothing, as expected. That's a recently mounted Oncidium. I don't know where that's come from, but that's doing new growth as well, again, as it should be. This is my Dendrobium tortili, or tortile, however you want to do it. And the main plant sort of died. But I took the two kikis off and they grew okay last year, and now each one of those is pushing up a new growth. So that's doing what it should be doing this time of year, growing. I don't expect that to bloom, but it may bloom on the two growths that are coming up now. Going along this bottom thing down here, that's the, right down there, that's all the kikis off the Dendrobium. Oh, come on. Lodgesii. That's my Comet King with its single new growth last year. Is that coming back into growth? No, new roots. That is my Dendrobium aphyllum, as is that. That's Dendrobium aphyllum, that nice big plant there. And so is that little thing. But this is the what? No, it's not. It's Primulinum. I'll get there in a minute. Come on, brain. Yes, this is Primulinum, and that's now going to go to somebody else. And if you look at the blooms, yeah, now imagine those blooms with a deep yellow gold throat to the lip. And that's what that one is. That's the variety Laos. And I got two nice new growths coming on that. So pleased. That's basically what I was hoping it would do. Well, we always hope for more growths. Coming along here, set of Tolumnias. This one's going to be in bloom soon, and that's the Jarak Flyer Soft Pink, and I'm looking forward to that. That's its first time. However, this is my species Tolumnia, Urophylla, and it's going to be Urophylla that probably isn't going to bloom because the top of the spike snapped off. Caught on the roof. It happens, and these are the struggling small ones that are coming on. The rest of this top row is mostly Latorias that are doing next to nothing. They're just not growing. They may come back into growth, they may not. That one is the Macrophyllum, is it? No, Tetragonum. Let's get those two muddled up. Tetragonum gigantea. And that one stopped growing. It's just stopped growing. What else have we got? There's a couple of the forest ones in there. The two Vandas are both pushing up new leaves frequently, and the roots are just showing signs of coming back into growth again. They tend to shut down in the winter in the cold, and all the growing tips, the green growing tips, stop, and then they start again. And right in the middle there, how about that then? That's a little bit of Spanish moss tangled up in there. That's a flower. Never mind, that's not what we're here for. Neither of the Vandas have spikes. That's that. My Renanthera up there, I might have to take that out of the pot. I'm just dubious about what's in the pot because it's just stayed as I got it. But what I did notice is there's a root tip there at the bottom of the tag. Well, I presume it is. If not, it's some sort of creature. But the media in here is showing a remarkable amount of green since I got it. So I don't know whether there's some moss in there that's now alive that wasn't before. But I think I might have to take it out of the pot. I need to know what's in that pot. Although it's got roots up here, they're aerial roots. They don't hydrate very well. Look at the colour. That's changed since I got it. And that will be the change of light level. And I think that needs to come down for a while. It can take that light, but it's the change. It's probably gone from a low light area before I got it into what is now my highest light area. Lubricate the old throat. Oh, that's hot. You know, it makes a change. Right, down the bottom here, I can't get it. There's quite a few Oncidium types along that back row. The reason there's room there is this monster up here that's going to be in bloom soon. Spikes, many. They're coming out, they look like they're coming out of other plants, but there's lots of spikes, so that's going to be a good blooming soon, not yet. My sorry looking Sotoanum is coming back into growth now. We've got new growths coming, so it is going to come back to life. I don't think it's ever going to look as good as it did last year, but over time it will get back there, but not this year. This year it's in recovery mode. The Tahitian Dancer's got new growth starting, so that's coming back into growth after it's blooming. It's in bloom a long time. I'm not going up the back there. This one here is the Nobly type that's out of season, and it may, even though it's got two lovely new growths, they might not bloom until next year. They might bloom halfway through the year, which is where it is seasonally. It was bought in bloom in the middle of the year on the two canes at the back. So these canes may actually bloom later this year, and they might just hold off till next year. But this needs to get some new growths going, and as he says it, he can see one. And it looks like there's a swelling there, or two. So that needs to grow, basically. All the cooler, shadier stuff I can't get at because there's stuff in the way. But the spike on Dracula Bella hasn't aborted. That's coming on. And the little species Miltoniopsis is actually looking quite nice now, compared with what it looked like when I got it. New growth's pushing on. Roots are coming out in various places, so that's going to pull on nicely now, I think. Thank goodness. What else have we got then? Coming round here, my Deesa's got a spike on, or one of them has. They're not looking very happy. A lot of those little plantlets in there look like they're going to die. And that'll leave me with one good plant that's going to bloom. So if I don't get some new plantlets off of this one, I'll lose it. This is Coelogene nitida. Was Orchids, I think. That's got two things growing. I still don't know whether those are spikes or new growths. At the moment, I'm not fussed. They will make their mind up at some point where it'll become obvious, and I can wait. So I don't worry about things like that, I'm afraid. The big bush, Dendrobium hancockii, has buds. Finding them is another matter. They're there. I've seen them. Oh, there's some down here on these lower branches. Yeah? So there are some. There's more than that. There are some others lurking. But I remember from last year, they hide. You know, they just appear from almost from nowhere, and quite quickly. But then they stall. They tend to have a little green shoot, and then nothing much happens for a while. And then you start to see the buds pushing out. So we will have some blooms on that. My Cymbidium is doing absolutely nothing since it was repotted. That should be pushing up a new growth soon. It's going to get thrown outside soon, but we're having a cold snap. The three large Miltoniopsis tucked in there to keep the shade. They're doing okay. That's all I can say. There's no sign of any spikes on the new growths. They may well bloom. The new growths on those plants, I mean, they are blooming sized plants. They were bought in bloom. We will see what happens with those, but they're recovering quite nicely. Don't bend down there like that, or don't bend down there and stay down there. Up here, those buds there are my Dendrobium anosmum. They'll be open in the not too distant future, week, maybe a bit more. these here are the Dendrobium nester. That will probably be open a little sooner. And then these we've already looked at. This is my Dendrobium phyllum, which I'm keeping. And the Dendrobium primulinum is off to Insa. And look at all those new growths. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll have 4 nice new canes to work on. And get up to that sort of length. And then you'll get a good blooming next year. Bushes up here, this is my Hercoglossum. That's got buds coming out all over the place. And again, they're not that easy to see, but they're there. Yeah. The more you look, the more you see. They're all over the plant, basically. There, here, new ones coming on that cane. They're everywhere. So the whole plant is covered in buds, which is what it normally does. Yeah, right deep inside the bush here. Nice ones. Oh, those are progressing quite nicely there. And these. Oh, that's good. So we'll have blooms on that soon. The next one along, I'm standing in the Vanda bucket here. Let me just kick it out of the way. Don't you slop on me. The next one along is the Friedrichsianum. And again, in amongst the bush are the buds. So they're starting quite nicely now, pushing on, so we will get blooms on there. Even if the odd 1 or 2 are kikis, they won't all be. So we've got buds coming on there. I can't get any further than that down that row. I will do in a minute. The Jenkinsii we saw, that's opening. That's looking okay. This big Cattleya up here is the, oh God, what is it? Genmanii, something like that. I've forgotten and I'm not getting it down. It bloomed, first time for me, and it's showing swelling at the base, so it is going to push a new growth out. Once it comes back into growth mode and I see some roots and a new growth, I'm going to hack that rhizome and see if I can push another growth out farther back. Because the leaves are starting to go on the back end, so it's never going to look very good anyway. It'll look a lot better with the new growth. The main plant of the Lodigessii is looking in a right mess at the moment. That really does look tatty. But the new growths are pushing on, which is what that plant needs to do. It had all its kikis taken off last year, so didn't do it any good either. And the next one along is the Laelia Broughtonia cross that's starting to grow quite a lot of roots, but there's still no new growth showing yet. Coming down here, there's all sorts. There's my Ignia. Classic example. I was asked, is it okay to repot when a plant's in bloom? And I said, if the blooms are open, you won't get a problem. But if you've got unopened buds, you might. So there you go. Classic example of me saying exactly what's going to happen and wishing it didn't. So I am going to lose some buds. There are a couple of blasted buds on this one. And it's a risk you take. That's unusual, I must admit. So there's 2 out of 3 on that little spike. And down in there, 1 out of 3. All the ones that are open are obviously fine. And these were only just opening. So they're okay. The plant will be fine. Other stuff in there, my hibikis tucked away in there, that's growing new growths. And the flower it had when I got it, it's still got. They do last a long time. Then coming round from there, we've got the one with the paler leaves, as a lot of them had from last year. That's my Shelob Tolkien, I think. This is Castanier with its nice strong new growth coming out. The huge Brassia up in there, which is Vericosum sea breeze, I think, with its 5 enormous spikes that are almost reaching the top of the canes now. I don't know what I'm going to do when they reach the top of the canes because I haven't got any longer ones. But hopefully the buds will start to form soon, but they are growing at quite a speed. I'm not going to do the Cattleyas, I just can't, but just looking round the Cattleyas, this tatty looking object was about to be thrown away and pushed a bud up, which recently bloomed and has finished now. I may decide to keep it. It was a good bloom. This one here is a species. That's chucking up a strong new growth up the back there. This one. Meikei is about to finish blooming. They're starting to drop now, and that should then come back into growth. I can't do up in the back row. I just can't get at those. This little one here is growing in two directions. It bloomed over this side, which is now starting some new roots, and we've got this spike on here. Very attractive blooms. They may be small, but they're very attractive. And then there's other stuff going on up here. This is the Cattleya Angel Heart with a stonking new growth starting there. There's another Angel Heart in there somewhere that's doing exactly the same thing, and I can't get at it. My Laelia Anceps is just coming back into growth from the two growths that bloomed. They're both now pushing out new roots. They'll be followed by the new growth. In fact, that one's just starting. The other one's around the back there. My little Psychopsis is growing roots. It's not doing much else, but the two little new growths actually have matured through the winter, which I'm surprised, because that's when it's coldest. So they've matured. They're just about starting to form a bulb. That one is anyway. The one on this side's not swelling up so much, but some new roots starting. So it is now growing some new roots, and hopefully when we get some warmer weather, that one will start to push on. Stuff down here, that's a species Cattleya of some sort. I've forgotten what. Harrisoniana, or something like that. That's got a stonking new growth coming on it. This is assorted stuff up in here, some of which is yet to be identified until it blooms. This is looking really poor at the moment, except for its latest new growth, and I think I can put that's the it's a Farmeri cross with Griffithianum. It has actually got a name, Memoria something Erdmann. That looks like it's about to spike on there. In fact it is. That's green, so that's going to bloom soon. Maybe two spikes, but definitely one. It's dropped quite a few of its leaves except on the new growth, so that needs to start some new growth now, and that may be delayed if it's going to bloom. We'll have to wait and see. And then there's a couple of little Oncidiums lurking in there, as I said, that need to bloom to find out what the hell they are. More Cattleyas over here. My Apple Blossom, nice set of buds on the top there. This plant is very tatty looking, but it has very nice blooms on it, and I'm hoping the next set of new growths are going to replace some of these. Some of these got a bit burnt in the sun, and it's had problems with scale, this one, quite badly, and looking at it, it still has, because that little piece that's just broken off, that needs dealing with now. That's just alcohol. They won't like it. Might not kill them, but they're not going to like it. And then this Cattleya up here has lost its spike up the back there, but it's just replaced it with another one here. This one I like a lot. I like the yellow orange, I'll call that, because it's not a deep orange like that one. It's a nicer, more subtle orange, but that red frill on the lip is just gorgeous. I really like that one. And then there's my cluster of red up the top there. That's looking good. Oh, more coffee. Oh, this must be my fastest update ever. Right, down the bottom here, what have we got? Oh, I better do it over there first. You're not going to see this very well because I've got hanging things in the way. Up the end there is Miltonia flavescens, a non-bloomer. Damn it. But that's going to somebody else now, where it can be a non-bloomer for them. And I bet you anything you like it flipping blooms. Change of environment will do that. My epidendrum is coming into bloom. You can see the spikes sticking up. You won't see the orange colour because it'll be silhouetted, but it's coming into bloom. That was virtually lost and borderline being thrown out. And then there's some more Oncidium types down here. That's a Howiara, a nice new growth. Shari Baby that's not looking very happy, but it's growing just about. And then this is one of my old Odontoglossum types, Golden Rialto, that managed to mature a bulb and produce some roots. So I'm waiting for that to do it again, basically. And if it tries to bloom, it will get stopped. It hasn't got the strength. And then down the bottom there is my Wilbur Chang bulbophyllum, and that's grown some new growths recently, and it's now starting some more. Yeah, don't bloom, don't do anything pleasant like pushing up a bloom spike, you just keep growing, it does it reasonably well, but it won't bloom. And then down here we've got the Silogeny Moriana, which is in growth mode at the moment. It's got nice strong growth coming up here, and there's another one here, and another one that looks like it's not going to push. It's like a dormant eye that started and then stopped. But there's 2 new growths on it. And I don't think either of them are going to bloom, because the bloom spike comes straight out of the middle of the new growth before the leaves form. So you know it's going to bloom very quickly, and it isn't. But this one might. We shall see. And then that's my Odontoglossum naevium. That's got several new growths pushing on. That should bloom again later in the year. Getting down there's all right, it's getting up. Then on this shelf we've got my species Oncidium something or other, Chrysomorphum, that was a gift with no roots. Well, it's got roots now and it's new growth pushing on, so I'm pleased with that. Up in behind here, so I've got to be careful where I put that one, because that's the one that's probably got a virus. We've got the Nocturnum, the new growth pushing on nicely, and it's coming back into growth mode with roots. That, with the dodgy leaves, is another Griffithianum crossed with Farmeri that has had some serious problems with its leaves over its whole life. And I'm waiting to see what it does this year. That looks like it's going to bloom as well. That looks like there's some nodules moving. Next to that is that's a Phalaenopsis type, and this is one of my black hair types. I forget which. They're all muddled up at the moment because they're not doing well, and I've at last found out why. They do not like anything like systemics or hydrogen peroxide or alcohol being used to kill scale. They just don't like any of it, and they drop their leaves. That's what this one's done. It's just dropped all its leaves. But I don't think it's dead, believe it or not. Well, there's something growing out the top of that cane, so it's not dead. It'd be typical if it tries to bloom, won't it? And I have to take the blooms off, because they're gorgeous. Right, that's that lot. Few mounted Phalaenopsis down there, Sidera japonica and other stuff. This is the other lot. This lot live up there normally. This is various things, twinkles. This is my sad looking Oncidium something or other Rogers's eye, and I had to take its latest growth off because it was rotting and going soggy. So it now lost its growing lead. It's now got to try and produce a new one, which at the moment it's failing to do. So it's growing nothing. No new growths, no new roots, and it's just about hanging on to one leaf. Don't know what's going to happen with that. No idea. And then we've got this Dendrobium, again, nobile type. Now how about that for 2 totally different types of blooms on the same plant? This, as far as I know, this is not 2 plants. It is remotely possible it's 2 plants tangled up together, but quite different blooms. These are the first that came out, and they haven't gone from one colour to another. That's how they opened, and then that one opened. Quite honestly, if you look at that, if you look at the leaves where that one with the lots of pink on, and then look at the leaves on a lot of the rest of the plant, you've got different sets of leaves here. They may well be 2 different plants muddled up together there. Well, given that that's got a name, not currently on it, but it has got a name, I then have to work out which bit of the plant has actually got the name on it. Never mind. And then tucked in behind this lot in there is my Bulbophyllum Elizabethan Buckleberry that is chucking out new growths all over the place on that plant. I'll just pop that down there. It's just coming back into growth. There's new growths pushing out in many places. Some of the bulbs are pushing out 2 new growths, so that's coming back into growth now. Didn't bloom on the last set, but then it hadn't long been chucked in this big bowl thing. But that's coming back into growth, so we may get some blooms on that later. Next to that is my still living Zygopetalum, and it's growing some roots and it's hanging on to its latest growth, even though it's not good, so not dead. We've got my Encyclia cordidera here, another black hair thing. That's the Frosty Dawn. That's nearly lost all its leaves except on one cane, and those aren't looking too good. Little dendrobium seedling, something from Lynn that I still haven't even looked at. This is my Harveyanum, and that looks like a spike. I'm going to have to take it off. I need you to grow. And then several other little dendrobiums that came out of the big box, one of which is pushing up a nice new growth. And what the other one's doing up the back there. What are you up to? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, you need to grow. You know where you'll be if you don't grow. Not a lot of tolerance. And then this sorry looking object is my Odontoglossum crispum. Growing roots now, reasonable roots as well, not token gesture. It is putting down a root system. This growth is not going to form a bulb, it's going to stay like that, so it needs another one, which will then produce even more roots, and it will hopefully then start to recover a bit more than it is now. Then over here we've got the other Renanthera. It's just in an open basket at the moment. One of my Sarcochilus, this is Hartmannii, a species with a spike on, that is not right. I've got to do something with this. It's not drying, and I think it's not drying because it's got hardly any roots down the bottom of the pot. So I've either got to ventilate the pot or get it out of the pot. And I need to have a look at this one because I have recently caught wind that some Sarcochilus are actually terrestrials. And if this is one of them, then that's totally the wrong media for it, which might explain why it's not growing. Okay, it's pushed a spike out, but it's not growing. It's only ever had that one fan. It won't grow from the base. The Prima Donna, bloom's starting to go over here. These will last a bit longer because they opened later. And then this needs to come back into growth. Last year's two new canes here haven't bloomed. They will either bloom later, they may or may not, or they will wait till next year and join the new growths that I should get soon. But no sign of them yet. Prima Donna does seem to start its growth late. And then tucked up behind that is my Latoria type that didn't go down like most of the others. It's not happy, but it didn't go down like the others did and drop all of its leaves and virtually die. But it did abort a new growth a while ago. But then it has bloomed on two of the canes, and that's Dendrobium alexandrii. So there we go, a flying update. And I know I haven't got all the plants, but in the main, I can safely say that things that are supposed to be growing in the main are growing, and things that are supposed to be blooming this time of year are either in bud or actually blooming. So, you know, we're not too bad. I didn't do this lot up here, did I? That's a piece of BC Mackay that seems to be pushing out a load of roots. A couple of, that's not growing very well at all, young Cattleya. The one next to it started a new growth, and it's now starting a much bigger, stronger new growth up the end. That's actually one of the ones to go. And then this other one up here is a little lemon drops crossed with something. That's got a lovely strong new growth coming out and producing a new set of roots, so they're not doing too bad. If you look through the gap in the rack, you can see the buds on the Dendrobium senile. They're going to be open soon. They're getting quite large now. And then along here we've just got assorted things that are just not growing, mainly Latoria types. That's Rhodostictum, not a sign of life at the base. Don't know what that is, but it's not growing. That's the Aberrans, which is okay, but it's not growing. And then this is two pieces off of something or other, and the top one is attempting to grow a new growth. So that might come back. Don't hold out a lot of hope for the piece at the bottom. We shall see. As I say, never give up on a dendrobium. Right, there we go then. A flash update on things going on. But like I say, it's the time of year for some things to be growing. Those are things that bloomed, you know, sort of mid to late winter. So they're coming into growth mode now. And then there's those that have rested over the winter that are in blooming mode. And some of those are still to bloom. And then they'll come back into serious growth mode. And Cattleyas are just a mix. You know, I've got some that are bloomed a while ago that are now pushing on strong new growths, and others that are still in bloom and haven't even started their new growths yet. So they're a bit of a mix. So there we go, a flash look round, and that's far from everything, but it's quite a lot. Quite a lot of it, not all of it. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to get my filming done for the Global Orchid Show today. I haven't got the light. I'm taking a risk. It's all my eggs in one basket. If I leave it till tomorrow and I still haven't got any light, well, I suppose I'm no worse off, am I? Whereas if I do get some reasonable light tomorrow, I'll get some better... With better light, you just get a little bit more contrast on a video. With stills, with the camera, I can play with that electronically, and I can adjust. I can make a photo that was taken on a dull day looked like the sun was shining, but I can't muck about to that level with the videos. I can do it a bit, but not a lot. So there we go, and lots of things to come, you know, things to look forward to. Hercoglossum, definitely. A lot of buds coming on this, and that always puts on a good show. They're small blooms, but they're delicately smashing. And we'll see those soon. Hello, looks like the sun's trying to come through. Perhaps I might get some filming done. But first, I really have got to finish watering my mounts. And I've at least got to make a start watering the pots, because I'm getting a bit behind again. But then we've had a few dull days recently, but we've had a couple of bright ones. And I don't want things starting to dry out this time of year. You know, a month or two ago, it wouldn't have mattered for a couple of days, but we're coming into growing season now. I don't want stuff staying dry for anything longer than it should be, which is not a lot. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by. I'll just add this on the end because I was actually asked about this. The Dendrobium lindleyi, which I wasn't expecting to bloom. We have 1 progressing spike, 2, 3, 4, 5, and possibly another one at the back, 6. We've got 5 or 6 spikes coming off the old part of the plant, which I didn't think was big enough to bloom. Well, there you go. So for next year, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of last year's growth, so we'll have 5 to bloom next year. And then obviously what I grow this year, which haven't even started yet, will be for the following year. But I am well pleased with something I didn't expect to bloom. It's definitely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spikes. 6 definite spikes, and possibly a 7th. Woohoo! That's going to be good. It's in effect, that is Jenkinsii's big brother, or big sister, however you want to look at it, on the grounds that the plants are incredibly similar to look at. The lindleyi is just bigger, bulkier, bigger leaves, bigger bulbs, yeah, and has many, many more flowers per spike. I mean, you can see this spike here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's probably 10 blooms to come on the end of that. Once they open out, obviously. Much longer, more pendulous, and far more blooms and bigger. But basically just a bigger version of Jenkinsii. In the olden days, it was often confused, and some people even named the Jenkinsii as aggregatum variety Jenkinsii. All that confusion with aggregatum, lindleyi and Jenkinsii has just been wiped away now, and people have made their minds up that aggregatum and lindleyi can be counted as synonyms, but the accepted true name is lindleyi, and Jenkinsii is an entirely separate species. So, got that? They'll probably change their mind next year and go back to the old way or something. Anyway, that's how it is for now. See you next time.